Hello and welcome, Silrace here, and it's time to talk about keybinds for Elder Scrolls Online. So this is a keybind guide. I have made a previous keybind guide on my channel and I'll link it in the description below. That game goes through keybinds for a couple games. Essentially, same keybind setup used on multiple games, because once you get used to it, it works and functions extremely well for multitude of games. Why do I want to make this video? Because frankly, default keys for this particular game are again extremely awful. So don't mind this particular bit if you don't know Finnish language. This means spacebar, because for some reason this thing recognizes that as the Finnish version of that particular key, but none of the rest keys. Anyway, let's talk about actual movement. TFGH, actual movement keys. As you can see, that is because it's in the middle of the keyboard and you can bind everything around them to keys, which is useful. WSD, for some reason developers copy this from shooters where you don't actually need that many keys to begin with. You do majority of your stuff in shooters with your mouse. You swap guns and you reload and you maybe do a melee hit and activation with keys, and obviously sprint and crouch. But that's pretty much it. An MMORPG is entirely different beast typically. You have inventories, character windows, actual abilities. This game only has 5, well, plus quick slots and an ultimate, so that's still 7 keys, and so on. Now if you look through this stuff, the spacebar is still the jump. Autorun is somewhere right beside those keys, instead of being somehow stuck at numlock, which somehow was the default key again. I was like, why? Why would you put it there? No one is going to reach that, right? I mean, do I take my hand off my movement keys to press numlock? Or what the heck? Roll dodge is in a thumb mouse button, because frankly, I am going to tell you that you will dodge much better by moving that into a single key than using press twice of a movement key to dodge into that direction, because that functions far worse overall. This is debatable whether you want to keep this in a thumb mouse button or possibly Alt. I'll explain that in a short bit. As you can see, down here Alt is my sprint key at the moment, because I find it easier to use than many other keys. Obviously, these two could be interchanged and they would function just as well, right? I mean, just put your hand on TFGH on the keyboard. You realize it is really comfortable. It's in the middle of the keyboard. You have lots of room to do other things with your hand. Lots of this stuff is exactly the same. Like interrupt is the same as the default because it functions well. That was actually pretty well done for the game and so on. Crouch is in C, that is still the crouch button. This is where all the intelligent stuff starts to happen, so to say. Essentially, this game, Elder Scrolls Online, you are animation locked. You cannot press all 5 of your abilities at once and they would all fire at once. That means it's animation lock. You press one of the abilities and it fires, and during the animation and happening of that ability, no other ability can instantly fire at the same time. That means you only need one side of the, movement keys for all your abilities. As you can see here, I have all 5 of my abilities plus ultimate to be used with my forefinger, right? Because only one of them can be happening at once, and my forefinger is definitely more powerful and more easy and agile than my, ring finger or pinky. So it makes it easier to control. In World of Warcraft this would be a much bigger section. They would cover pretty much everything around my keyboards, because you would need access to like 20-30 abilities. Here you don't. So it functions like this. Instead then we put synergy and weapon swap on the other side. We put, as you saw there, we put toggle mount on the other side. Sheath, unsheath, use quick slot is on the other side from the actual abilities. Essentially all of this is preference based, but once you get used to having all of this stuff in a same way for a game, I will guarantee you, if you change into these particular keybinds I have shown here, it will take you a week or two to get really used to them. But after that, you will play so much better because you have easy access to absolutely everything. Interact with environment. Easily accessible with the forefinger. Interact with players, same thing. Then all this stuff starts being, well, there are some random letters which you can guess where they are. This thing is a bit odd and it will probably look a bit odd for you, but that's because this game doesn't recognize more than 2 thumb buttons. And so I have, on my mouse control settings, this is bound to a mouse button for me. So I can open and close character windows on the mouse button. And this bunch is something I do in majority of MMORPGs. I put the stuff I don't normally need to open, such as guild window, contact window, alliance war, mail, into the numpad. Because this way they are, well, they are out of the way and they are in a place where I just take my hand off the mouse and use those buttons, because they are not something I need to open in combat or in haste. Notifications, help system, all that stuff. Cycle focused quest being F5, you just reach upwards a little and press F5 to swap your quest around. Simple stuff. All this stuff is also out there. This part here is provided by an add-on, Easy Quick Slots, and thank you very much to whoever made this, and I will definitely link your add-on in the description below, because my god is it good, because developers decided that this game would be controller friendly even though we are playing on the goddamn PC. Anyway, these are now bound. These number keys, they are now bound to quick slots for me. So that's what I do here, I use quick slots with those number keys. And you'll soon see what the other number keys have been for, right? You have seen them here. Inventory, character window, skills, journal, and map. They are all in the number keys where you normally would have your abilities, but in my case, abilities are in the other section, alright? So if you are not using this particular add-on, I suggest you will, and the link will be in the description below. And, well, rather, or you should, not you will. Anyway, and if you do, then, well, this is my take on it. User interface shortcuts. If you take a look at this, a lot of this stuff is bound to where it would be without, you know, the user interface. Quick slots was in R, map was in F5, cycle focused quest was in F5, easy to remember, they are the same thing. However, this allows me to also do all this stuff quickly with the keyboard, because all of these things is next to the movement keys. Mouse button for stowing siege weapon, extremely useful to have, right? Dialogue, same thing, being able to use them and close them without having to raise your hand off your movement keys. It can just always rest there, no matter what you do. And same thing with notifications. Right? Just quickly scrolling through this so you can see it again. Now why should you move to keybind setup like this? Like I said earlier, it will take you a week or two to get used to this kind of a keybind setup. And you should obviously alter it slightly to your own preferences and all that jazz. However, realize that this kind of setup will very likely let you play the game better than WASD with absolute default keys where you have to reach very far for inventory being at I. That is somehow really out of the freaking way to open inventory. Here, with this kind of setup, inventory happens to be sitting at 4. If you put your hand on TFGH, you realize where 4 is. You can only just raise your ring finger slightly and press 4 and you open your inventory. That kind of little things. Thank you very much for watching, hopefully this was helpful, and even though you might not take the exact copy of this particular keybind setup, hopefully this gave you ideas how to change and rearrange your keys to better suit yourself and your preferences.